balancing on a fucking bitters bottle because it's bent, and I accidentally touched the bitters bottle.
I feel like everything in your place is probably balanced on a bitters bottle.
You're not.
Yeah. The foundation of his apartment is actually just nothing but Underberg caps, just like that's all.
I finally figured out how I'm going to do this giveaway. I have literally thousands of Underberg caps. I drink at least one a day myself, but also I collect them from the bar, etc. And I also already have all of the Underberg merch that you can turn them in for that I care for. So I want to give them away. And I want to give them away Price is Right style on my Instagram. I'm going to show them in a big bucket. And I'll throw in like, a fucking bowling ball and some other things so people can't like go get a bucket that size and try and figure it out, But like Price is Right style, closest to guess without going over gets them. Guess as many times as you like. It's $5 per guess. I'm going to donate this money to charity. So everyone can just be like, here's $20. I'm going to guess 4 times. Here's my payment on Square. Here's my 4 numbers. Put those into a spreadsheet. It's going to work, but it's going to be cool. Because I have so very many Underberg caps around here.
Yeah.
It's disturbing. I'll pull it up here and show it in the camera in a sec. But like sort of a bus tub, but on top of the bus tub is the large size number 10 can from Losardo Cherries. It's full with a cap on it. 2 full quart containers, 2 full pint containers, and then a little fucking plastic grocery bag sitting on top of that. Like there's I'm going to say we're approaching, if not exceeding, the 10,000 mark.
Okay. So there you go, regulars. You have a little bit of insider trading info that the other people don't. So
don't be the guy who's like $1, Bob. You're not going to get it.
Yeah, that's the only thing I allow myself to drink when I'm not drinking.
Underberg, yeah.
I mean, sure. Listen,
it's non-potable bitters.
It's not potable bitters, but also it's actually it's truly it's the dose size that Dr. Hubert Underberg prescribed for what it was meant for. I mean, but also like
sitting on top.
Nice. Well, also
that's
like
really do that again in front of the mic. That's some good ASMR there. Yeah.
It's like Legos. Sounds like Legos.
Yeah, it does. But yeah, I mean, like, and I could, 15 years ago when I was working at Prime Meats and drinking, at least 10 a night behind the bar.
Yes.
These days, I'm like, I can maybe have 2 in a day, and that's good.
I'm not drinking anymore. I'm just gonna have 10 Underberg.
Yeah,
2. Anyway,
all right, let's get into it.
So you don't charm the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil finds his groove in them rhythm and blues that sound. It's gonna get you sun in the air.
Welcome back to the Speakeasy. I'm Damon Bolte.
I'm Souther Teague.
And I'm Greg Benson. And guys, there's been some bad news out there on the macro level. Obviously, it's been a tough week. Supreme Court shit, Congress shit. There was a fireworks factory in Northern California that caught on fire. Damon's whereabouts have not yet been confirmed the day that it did, but
it's today. It's burning right now.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, and I mean, and Damon's here with us. So there we go. We can all 3 of us alibi him. For that, so yeah. But some, I don't know, maybe good news, but I think just like it's good news. I think in terms of the overall effect on humanity, it is net neutral, but it is good news for me because it confirms that I was right. And I always like news that does that. So last week, Vinepair ran an article by the one and only Olivia White, the headline of which is Gen Z is drinking as much as older generations, new data shows. We won them over, guys. We did it. Finally.
I'm shocked and certainly pleased to hear that as well. Wow. I'll have to seek out this article. Because man, my anecdotal data certainly doesn't show that.
Well, I mean, I think that this is, here's always sort of been my theory, is that I wouldn't be surprised if people are drinking a little bit less. I think because for a number of reasons, weed and shrooms are legal in a lot of places where they didn't used to be. So people have options if you want to kind of check out of your plane of reality for a little while. I think that we, as older generations, set kind of a bad example during the pandemic because, some of us, definitely were drinking too much then. And so I think that there is a sort of, people who were our youngers were looking at us and being like, ugh, that doesn't look fun. And it wasn't. Good call.
Sure. No, it wasn't. Yeah.
But I also think that there is just this obsession with now that we have words to talk about different generations like Gen X and millennials and Zoomers, I think there is this obsession with trying to taxonomize and specify what exactly it is that makes them different. And so any little trend that people can latch onto, I think has a chance to go viral. And meanwhile, I mean, just looking at the statistics here, a BevTrack study conducted in April of 2023 showed that 66% of Gen Z consumers in the world's top 15 markets reported consuming alcohol in the previous 6 months. By March of 2025, that was up to 73%. And in certain markets, it was even more pronounced. For example, in the United States, Gen Z consumption went from 46% in 2023 to 70% in March of 2025. And I think that this is a good thing because it means that, you know, people aren't binge drinking when they're 19 and they are discovering how to actually be responsible consumers in a responsible way.
Well, not only that, probably entering the consumer market as more of an educated consumer because there's so much available information now, right? I think in the past you just sort of drank whatever to get the quote unquote get the job done. You weren't looking for flavor or quality. And now maybe you enter the market a little bit later and you have some information at your side. I would also think that even just listening to you talk about this, the questions that say like how recently have you had a drink? I think my anecdotal evidence is at the bar, but we all know on this show how RTDs are explosive in growth. So that means they're just maybe not drinking at the bar. Right? Yeah. They're in their backyard. They're at the beach. They're, wherever with an RTD. This is fascinating. I'm happy to hear it. And I hope it ricochets around back to the bar scene soon.
I'm happy to hear it as well. And I'm also happy that it's like 70% feels like a good number. Yeah. Like if it was a 46% to 95% jump, I'd be a little bit like, oh, gee, I feel we may have overcorrected there a bit, fellas.
As pendulums are wont to do, they swing, too far and then they have to correct and then they frankly overcorrect. And we're constantly in that game.
Exactly. But I think that this to me, these numbers, and granted, this is, only one study, this is a snapshot in time, right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that
it's by the lab team at Vinepair,
the crack team out there.
I don't know, listen, they're great, but I don't know how in depth they're getting.
I mean, well, there's that one guy that writes for them, that Greg dude, who's totally untrustworthy, but everybody else out there, I think, is great. But yeah, I think that it shows that maybe people are finally doing what we, and at least I, have been saying for a while, which is like, look, if you introduce booze as neither this amazing thing that's super awesome that's going to make you funny and sexy, or this terrible thing that's going to kill you so you should never do it, if you just introduce it to people as, here is a facet of the human biological experience. It has good aspects and bad aspects, and it will affect different people in different ways that are not their fault. And it should be treated with a degree of respect because it can have boomerang effects on you. I think that if you approach it with that and also say, but it can be a vital part of socializing and grieving and celebrating and all these other things that are a part of the human condition. If you just teach it to people that way, people will make responsible choices when they're ready. How about that? Ain't that a novel concept?
Yeah, and it's great with food.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that are
great with food,
I don't know. We've got joining us in the studio today. She is the former beverage director of Momofuku. She's currently opening a new bar in New Orleans and is writing a book about Korean cocktail culture. We've got Haera Shin. Haera, thank you so much for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on the Speakeasy.
Yeah, happy to have you.
Stoked to have you. Yeah,
and you're zooming in with us from New Orleans, where you just moved literally a couple of days ago. What neighborhood are you living in?
Just a couple of days ago. So currently I'm staying uptown, and the place is going to be in Bywater. So we're far away.
Yeah, you're kind of at the opposite ends.
In sight. Yeah.
When I lived there, I lived in the Marigny, which is butts up next to the Bywater.
Right. Yes, Marigny. I'm learning all the neighborhoods and definitely getting to know all the different pockets. So Bywater and Uptown is currently where I'm going back and forth.
Yeah, I lived a block away from the original Hubig's Pie factory that has since burnt down, and then they've rebuilt in another location. But as a new New Orleanian, you will soon discover, if you haven't already, what Hubig's pies are all about.
Oh, the lemon is my favorite. I've had them all. Yeah, no, that's a rite of passage. I believe that's,
I'm
like,
ride or die
therefore-
peach.
Right.
I gotta have the peach.
Well, not to get this interview started off on an antagonistic foot there, Haera, but I'm going to call a little bit of bullshit on the fact that you moved in a week ago and your apartment looks very well decorated. You have a
I was
fucking
gonna say the
grandfather
same.
clock
Yeah,
behind you.
I was thinking it too, but I was thinking, oh, she's probably borrowing somebody's place.
Yeah, no, I'm staying within an existing place right now. So
Ah,
moved
okay.
in. Yeah, my partner, who I'm going to be opening it with, already lives here. So he is a little bit more established and set up, and I was able to find a nice little nook here.
Yeah, looks great.
Well, it's beautiful. I really like the
I was gonna say,
That's-
you know,
aesthetic
like
you have behind you.
But as you were saying before, Damon, like offsite, like offline, or but this is like, again, it's all pre-existing wood, and like all the sort of like the whole space has already existed the way it is, and like it's just, you just threw some
Yeah.
photos up, but like it's all very original to the place.
Yeah,
that
for
it's
our
encased
listeners out
in.
there, we were talking about this before we went on air, just about like New Orleans, and about, like, I was saying that I'm excited for you opening a place in New Orleans, because I often say that, you know, when you're opening a bar or a restaurant, one of your most important business partners is the space itself, right? Because it can really
Agreed.
dictate like what happens there, the vibe, and you can't really go wrong in New Orleans. You know, it's like already kind of built in for you, and the place that you're sitting in right now looks like it's been there. You know,
Yeah, looks
like it's
established,
never
comfortable,
changed, you know?
welcoming. Hmm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
very cool.
It's exactly what we're going to be going for. We're going to be we're going to make sure that we give homage and respect to the existing bones of the place.
Yeah, I was going to say
Um,
also, if that's how you move in 2 days, like, I hate to be the person that asks
Bars-
friends to help me move if I ever
I was
have
going
to.
to be like,
You're going to be
yeah,
top call.
either that or this
But
bar
yeah,
is
let's,
open like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that too.
Well, I definitely want to talk about the bar later on.
Yeah,
But first
yeah,
of
for
all,
sure.
we said at the top that you are writing a book about Korean cocktail culture, and
Mhm.
obviously that's one of the things I'm most excited to talk to you about.
Same.
But I'm sure there are people who might be listening to this, and when they hear Korean cocktail culture, are thinking, "Oh, we're just going to talk for 45 minutes about soju." So I want to give you some time at the top here. Disabuse people of that notion. Give us the more in-depth look beyond just that surface level understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's the thing. It's happening now. Koreans and Korean drinking culture, Korean spirits in general, are really now coming to the fore. They have not existed at the length of, say, like sake or other spirits. Like, we've been fiercely protective of, and it's been closely so tethered to Korean cuisine and food that, like Soju, Korean cuisine, all Korean culture, all those things are so tethered together, and have not really been, and have existed in relative anonymity, I think, as far as like we can say, with how Korean food has reached some more of the masses of late, but not historically. Like, it hasn't had the storied history of like other cultures. Like to say Japan, because everybody is so like Japanese spirits and culture has been just so part of our whole global existing infrastructure for such a long time, that, you know, that when we say soju is a great gateway to what other spirits that people are starting to get to know exist in Korea, right? So soju being like this thing that's so tethered to food, with the way that we drink. And I just want to know with you gentlemen, like, just let me pose to you guys, you've all had Korean cuisine. Have you gone out? Have you really embraced what a night out of eating Korean food and just taking and drinking soju is, and what that's like?
Yeah, absolutely.
mean-
Here in New York, of course, plenty of Korean barbecue places that we go, and typically you go in mass. You don't. It's not like a place you go alone or just on a one-on-one date. It's a group. Yeah, the soju hits the table. You crack open the bottle sort of ceremoniously together, almost like when champagne arrives. You got to make that pop, and then yeah, it's consumed with the food throughout the meal from beginning to end. And then hopefully the party doesn't stop here. We're going to go to the next place and kind of eat and
Yep.
drink our way through the night. I mean,
Nailed it.
that's my experience.
Greg, were you saying? Greg, do you agree?
I was also going to talk about Korean barbecue, so I have, I concur with what has been said already.
Right.
Is that,
And
are we way off though?
you are right on, and that's
Okay,
the thing
good.
about, Korean. That's the thing about soju and the communal aspect of it. The fact that like you are never to deny a pour. So
Mhm.
you know you're there with four people, and everybody wants to cheers and go around and cheers. You're not, everybody's polishing off at least their own bottle.
Yeah.
And the beauty of soju is that it is meant to be drank in shot glasses. It's always going to, and then the soju bottle that the green bottle, the very familiar kind of bottle, is always sitting around 12 to 16% because you're going to get lit. If you're drinking and you're taking shots throughout the meal, you have to, there's no way that you're drinking vodka shots all night. And so, because of the fact that Korean drinking culture is always so tethered to soju, to the way that you drink it, to the way that you're cheersing it, the way that you can't deny a pour, the fact that like there's so many levels of like who's pouring it, if you're with a group of people and if you're with Korean people, then you're always looking at, is it of the male female dynamic? You're looking at age dynamic.
Mhm.
So if you're younger,
Social
you are
status.
social status, of course. So all these little intricacies that exist in like the communal aspect of drinking is so part of like the Korean, is so steeped in how you enjoy drinking. And by the way, you mentioned 1차, 2차, 3차, those literally are translate to the first place, the second place, and the third place. So when you're having your Korean barbecue, that's 1차. That's just the first place you're
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
You're going to 2 or 3 more places after
Exactly.
that and continuing to cheers and enjoy alcohol. So for the longest time, that's how Korean soju was enjoyed. Nowadays, and there's like been an acceleration of like more premium style soju and other fermented spirits, fermented and distilled spirits that have higher ABVs that are meant to be enjoyed through cocktails and just in different kinds of ways. And that hasn't existed previously because of the way that we used to drink. Nowadays, with the idea that you're no longer having to go and drink with your work colleagues, it's like the culture of Korea has changed quite a bit too. The way that and especially, and it's been accelerated through COVID as well, where you're not really sitting around with a huge group of people anymore. You now can drink independently. Also, when everything kind of shut down, everybody had to be more driven into independent style of drinking. So they started to learn about how to enjoy and appreciate things in a more mixology way, in more spirits focused way. So like all these sort of more the way that Koreans are consuming alcohol now is definitely a little bit more in line with the way that you would see in like cocktail bars, and that's been popping up in the last 5 years. And that being said, so I love that we all had sort of like some kinds of inlet for how Koreans and soju and how that's drank. But like the idea came to me about 10 years ago when I was starting to recognize that, not only is there a huge leap with Korean spirits and soju, but like also pantry ingredients, the things that used to be really unfamiliar when it comes to the Korean pantry of like cuisine, things like that have become a little bit more popularized. So things like fermented paste, bean paste, doenjang, gochujang, any kind of jang, which is basically the Korean kind of soy sauce, which is actually called kanjang. Those have all become way more popularized. Um, these are things that I started putting in and secretly putting into all of my cocktails.
Nice.
Like you don't know why this is so damn delicious,
Right.
but it's because I put bean paste in it, and it
Hell
gave the
yeah.
savory element that you had no idea was coming at you. We're not using saline solution; we're using
Right.
fermented bean products here. So
So
10
cool.
years ago, I just started to just inject these things that like I grew up having, things that were like as known to me as salt and pepper. I was using soy sauce and doenjang and Korean chili pepper and all these things that I didn't know that I was like I had grown up with, that like I wanted to shine a spotlight on, and just kind of like add them to the cocktails that I was making. And so that was this has been a 10-year exploration of like including those ingredients and seeing where they fit, adding them to spirits of different cultures and in different you know of all the different countries, and then seeing where we're at. And this is a continued development that I am working on. And so this book, Korean Cocktails, is just a complete amalgamation of like of the anthology of cocktails that I created for the last 10 years, both being able to do that, like just having the platform to be able to do that at Momofuku, who just gave me so much
Sure.
runway.
Hmm.
To also recognizing that on a global scale, and friends in Korea who are also doing these things, and making sure that I'm including those recipes as well into this book that is going to be coming out next year. So
Incredible.
a little bit of a long story to where we're at, and like why this book is happening now, and I feel will be timed really well for next year, because we're on the cusp of it happening now. People
Yeah.
understanding what that is.
Well, I think, excuse me. I think, obviously our show has been on for over a decade, and we talk about drinking and drink culture. And I think that we saw a huge jump in the culture of Japanese drinking. We still are kind of in the throes of the jump in sort of the style, sorry, the style and drinks from Mexico. Wow. We'll edit some of that out, Armin, I hope.
Get an Underberg in there. Jeez,
Yeah,
clearly
I think
unmedicated
that's
today.
a prescription for that.
Yeah, I had one earlier. We saw, the jump in Mexican, products hitting the shelves and going crazy, and Mexican drinking becoming a little bit more forefront. It seems a logical step, to be honest, that Korean would be next on the list, right?
Yep.
It's a population of people who do have a drinking culture, and then they're maybe being infused with the more sort of cocktail-driven culture, and it seems quite logical. So I'm excited to hear about your book, and I'm excited to see it next year.
Yeah, and I have to say, when I continue to sort of the narrative about Korean spirits, it is truly an identity of the place. So much like mezcal or much like pisco, they're of the land, and they're very unique to where they are. So like people who are like, if you're like, oh, is soju, is it like sake? No, it is absolutely not. Like, first
Right.
of all, the ingredients that go into it are completely different. Sake uses koji, Koreans use nuruk, and nuruk is a fermentation starter that also includes yeast. So whereas like with sake, say with the koji, it undergoes the process of the initial where spores inoculation, and then it turns like the product into something that yeast can take over and start to create a sake with, right? Well, nuruk it's an all-in-one thing that's been fermented together as a brick over thousands of years of time. This invention has become, it's like the lighter and then the spark. Like, it's all, nuruk is an all-inclusive like fermentation, both the starter and the sort of the fermenter as well.
Mhm.
It's all inclusive, and that's just over years and years of just like of refinement that it's created. And because of that, because it's so of the land, this noodle has things that are based on, like, it pulls from bacteria from existing native yeast, native bacteria,
Sure.
native barley. All those things are created together to create this puck, which after you add your grains, goes through the process and creates the final product. It is so much of the land. There's no part of it that's not. And so because of that, it is so uniquely of Korea. And the fact that over thousands of years it has been untouched relatively. It has not changed much. I mean, I can get nerdy, but this is all in the book about all the things that had to happen throughout the years with with the Korean War and like Japanese, occupation. That is like, Korea took a hit. Korea took many hits where a lot of these things could have died out, but we continue to pivot and preserve and formulate. And so it just continues to drive what is our native land. I mean, that's why it's such a beautiful, why it's such a beautiful spirit to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of where this journey began for you, because and this is my understanding as a white boy, and I hope the I is audible in the word boy when I say white boy there. But like in conversations I've had with people who are immigrants and from immigrant cultures, there is a period when you're younger of very much wanting to blend in, I guess is the best word, of being like,
Mm.
you know, fuck you, don't ask me where I'm from. And like, you know, that's kind of a rude question anyway, so maybe fuck you in perpetuity. But there's this sense of, you know, I am American, shut up, go away. And then there is a sort of later on rediscovery of this love of where you're from and wanting to really celebrate and champion this culture. Was that, you're nodding, so it sounds like that kind of resonates with you, but I'd love to
Nailed
hear about that.
nailed that. I mean, look, I look like when I bartended through to get myself through college, like my parents didn't even know. Like they were like, "Oh, you're taking care of yourself." I'm like, yeah, got it. Like, you know, don't worry about it. And so like to me it was like something that I was doing for fun, you know. I did catch the bug then. I didn't know that it was.
Hmm.
So when I went back to continuing my school, went into marketing, did the boring 9 to 5er, I was still tugged back towards it. So I was living in Astoria at the time. And then I just started going to this bourbon bar, and then I just like literally was just like, "Can I work here?" Like and and
Yeah, low
you know the
key. Can I
reason
just pull
why?
some shifts?
Can I just pull some shifts? Like I used to
Yeah.
sling vodka like till 5 a.m. in Chinatown, like in my 20s. Like I could do this. And the thing is that the bug was caught because of like nerddom, of essentially being like, you know, you I learned about bourbon, and then the person who I learned from was like, he's not in the industry anymore, and but he taught me that like it doesn't end there just because you are working somewhere. Like, do you want to know more about this? Do you want to know the ins and outs of what bourbon is, where it comes from, why it's so specific to the South, what it is. And then because of the fact that he was so I don't know, in love with it, it made me feel the same way about like my own thing. And I was like, there are things about my culture that I grew up doing, which is like, I grew up drinking soju and all this stuff, but why? And what is the history of it? Like, I also want to know more about this. I also want to learn. So I started to take it really seriously. I started taking um, the education component of what it is and why you put things together and where they come from really seriously. And then I recognized that not everybody, you know, that stepped behind the bar did that. I mean,
Right.
not to say there's anything wrong with that,
Nope.
like step in, a lot of people are great at different things when it comes to being behind the bar and slinging and being behind the stick and doing what we do. But I was for sure, more on the other end of things. Like I wanted to know the whys. And so after that little stint there, I went over to this place called Zuma, which is funny because Zuma is conceptually a Japanese izakaya that was created by a German-born chef
In
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 London.
London, yeah.
In London, right? So I was like,
This all tracks.
it all tracks. It all tracks. And the fact is that he had studied for 6 years in Tokyo and learned about the cuisine, and sort of seeing the Eurocentric lens of what Japanese cuisine is, and then having it be brought over to New York, with so many different levels of like
Right.
crazy, like how like, what is this whole thing, and how does it
Right.
make
Like, how
sense?
far did we
And
spin off from the true plot? Right.
how do we yeah, exactly, how many derivations of like authenticity to be like pivot here, like where are
Hmm.
we? But the thing is that because of that fact, they were so adhered to so much authenticity, almost to a point of like maniacal levels,
Sure. Hmm.
that it was like, yeah, it was insane. Like, so training behind that bar and learning the Japanese techniques drove me further into wanting to go, oh well, fuck this. We're talking about Korea. I'm bringing Korea to the scene. That's what I know. I'm passionate about, and I'm seeing that these dots started connecting for me.
Hmm.
And when I became bar manager there after 8 months, again, because of the fact that I was driven so much about knowing more, learning more, never resting after I clocked out, I was like, I want to know everything about Japanese whiskey now. Okay, I want to know about why do we use this technique. It was the first time that I learned about ice. Like, and I know ice is like, everybody talks about ice and knows about ice now, but I that was 10 years ago, and I was like really learning. I was like, why are we cutting them from these huge pieces of blocks? Like, what is like why are we measuring and weighing out why it goes in the drink? Like, what is happening?
Hmm.
Um, it was like, oh, I freaking love this. So Yeah, so I was there for a few years, and then cut to I was like, this is I and now I realized, okay, there's that, there's that. Now I'm thinking, where do I go next? How do I bring all these things together? I started to look towards Momofuku because I'm like, wait, Don Lee, Booker and Dax,
Yeah.
Dave Arnold. How the hell do I get there? Like
Hmm.
that's next for me. Um, 7 years ago, I pushed my way into uh, somehow lucky, whatever chance, right timing. I was there to be the beverage manager and open their newest location at in Columbus Circle.
Right.
So um, starting as a beverage manager there, and to just work my way up. And 7 years later, beverage director overseeing all of the locations across the states, West Coast over to East Coast. So, I mean, like that. Yeah, I mean, again, it was just mostly driven by just not wanting to rest without knowing why everything was the way it is. It's
Right. Drive
probably
to
been
learn.
really annoying to people,
Well,
by the
I
way,
think
on the way.
I think drive to learn then folds into drive to share, right? So you want to gather all that information, but then you want to share it. And the way you share in our world is you put things in a glass and push them across the bar. And another way you share, of course, is to imbue that same knowledge that you have into your team. And the bigger your team, the more you can share, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and
Seems
I had the
logical to me.
most wonderful platform to do that because I was starting to bring in Korean spirits like as soon as I joined the company there. I was like, we're getting premium soju back there. So Tokki soju, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with that brand
Hmm.
in Black and
Yeah,
Jug.
I was going to say
Um,
that we've had Brandon Hill on the show before, and
Brandon Hill, sorry.
for
Yeah.
any of the listeners out there who want to like dive deeper into the category of soju, you can go back and listen to that episode. So that can keep us on track talking about you.
Yeah.
No, of course. I mean, Bran is amazing. Like his.
Totally.
I mean, that is truly a love affair because being non-Korean and creating a brand, like he really had to learn every part of it and just really make it part of his own like DNA in order to be able to gift that back out again.
Totally.
And it is truly, I consider it truly authentic because it is part of it is like one of the forefathers of like the premium spirits, premium soju movement. I mean, like, up until through the 1990s, like Korean soju was considered to just be the only thing that people knew about it was the green bottle. And the
Hmm.
green bottle is ubiquitous, but it's also like, it's been much maligned because let's face it, it is factory made, like it's mass produced. It uses a little bit of rice, but a lot of it is made with like ethanol and other types of like products, which is like essentially tapioca and sweet potatoes because
Hmm.
of how cheap it is and able to be produced. Um, there is a place for that though, because you're
Of
drinking,
course.
I
it's
like the
gone.
sweet potato stuff.
Me
Yes.
too. And because of the fact that it's used it's used as product, they've been able to create like a distillation process, this charcoal distillation to create the cleanest product. So where they've had to use cheaper products there, they've been able to make um, they've uh, they've been able to utilize other production methods that are excellent to make
Right.
something on the other end so clean and pure. So that's the beauty of what I think Koreans
Well,
do.
also
They
there,
just go,
I think just
there's a need.
culturally, you have to maintain a product that has a price point if it's going to be so ubiquitous and so consistently consumed,
And if you're
right?
going to crush so many bottles at dinner.
So
Oh yeah.
you gotta have your sort of $2 chuck. Your in France you got table wines everywhere. They're like ludicrously inexpensive because that's what you drink every single day, right? So you got to have the product that's for the masses. But then of course you can premiumize, and I think that's what that's what's happening, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was a huge thing where, like in Korea, they were trying to jack up prices a little bit, and like everybody
The
picked. It was
Koreans
on
freaked out,
mass.
yeah.
Everybody freaked out. So they were like, keep it as is. The other thing that did amazingly was because of the green bottle, they were able to. So like, if you see different labels from different products, they're all green bottles because they all use the same bottles. They've all
Mhm.
decided and banded together to keep prices low. We're not going to compete against each other by creating all these different kinds of ways to market our own brands. They're going to work together to make sure that and it actually standardized and made everything else more popular.
Brilliant.
which is I
I
think
love
so
that.
brilliant, and the recycling aspect too. So it's also environmentally,
Brilliant.
it's also,
Oh yeah.
and in turn was environmentally conscious. So everybody just brings back their bottles and recycles it to each other's to each other's factories. It's
Right.
incredible, and it keeps prices so minimal. So
Right.
um,
That reminds me of when I was in San Sebastian, Spain. Almost every place that you pop into for a tapa, this is weirdly related. Almost every place you pop into for a tapa, you can walk out of, and they'll let you take your glass, because whatever you're drinking, you just drop that glass at the next bar. They're all using the same
Yeah,
glassware.
it's the bodega glass. Yeah, the
oh yeah, is
sherry.
it
Yeah,
like kind of like one of these, right? Like just
Yeah.
like
the short,
a
the
cool
really
little like
Yeah.
tiny little glass or something. That see, I love that.
But they all, whether it was a collective subconscious or an actual agreement, they're all just like, yeah, fine, we're all using the same glass, just rotate them around.
That's almost like a micro like ecosystem, like a hotel, like with multiple food and beverage outlets. It's like, well, if they don't end up in the room or in their suitcase or out on the street, they're going to be under this roof somewhere. So
Yeah, it'll be
it's
here
like,
somewhere. Yeah, exactly.
but
But I
Yes,
love
exactly.
I love
it
that.
brings up
I
a
love
question though, like if they're all using the same glass bottle, do they have to melt them down and reform them, or do they just wash them and refill them?
I'm assuming that they just go through a process of not melting it all, but
I would assume they're washing. Like I'm old enough to remember when
Sterilizing
we used to
them.
return our
yeah,
Coca-Cola bottles, right? They got washed and sterilized
Yeah,
and reused, right?
sterilized
yeah,
for sure. I think they're
Yeah.
just sterilized and just
cool.
yeah. I mean, by the way, we can even get into like the crazy recycling system in Korea. It's so laborious. There's like 6 different compartments, and you have to they have to get it.
Oh wow.
Everything has to get washed before you put it away. So because of that, it probably makes it pretty easy
Yeah.
over
Well,
there
I
to
mean,
do that.
I also feel like, I look at that and then I look at, I mean, we here in New York, we have to separate our paper and our cardboard from our plastic and our glass. God forbid. Like my parents in Virginia,
now
they just throw
composting.
everything in the same bin. And I kind of look at this and I'm like, how exactly is this working? I was like, maybe we should be separating everything into, and the thing is, with that and with the recycled bottles, I kind of hear that and I'm like, well, that's where we're all going to be in 20 years, either by choice or by circumstance of, being forced to based on dwindling resources in a warming planet. So we might as well choose to do it now while we can
Yeah.
and do it the way we want to do it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, pivoting from that storm cloud moment, there's one other thing I really wanted to talk to you about, and this is kind of you've already demonstrated these skills as an evangelist for some of these amazing, some of these things that I was already a fan of, like Soju and the Korean barbecue that we were talking about earlier. Just want to give a shout out to kimchi because I think kimchi is amazing as well. But you've been an evangelist for these things and for things that like I didn't even know about that now I'm excited to try. And that relates to the fact that you have a marketing degree and you took an interesting path to do that, where you were bartending and then went to school and got that marketing degree and then sort of wound up back in the bar world. And it's rare to see someone do that A to B back to A path. So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that and then how that's helping you as you're now being an author and a owner / operator of a new space down in New Orleans.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think so let's not get carried away. I got a marketing degree and I worked for a telecommunications company with this marketing degree, and it was soul sucking.
Soul Korea.
What's the word? It sucks. Does that make sense? Is my tone reading?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was dead inside for years. No. But I mean, it was one of those things where like I was like going to work. I mean, I was with the marketing, by the way, and even back then, like marketing the marketing that I know now it does not, it's a completely different animal than it was when they're teaching you about like, P&L and like profit and like how to figure out your margins and all that. Like now it's like the social media, it's a free for all. Who knows? Like it's
really
it's totally
super
wild
different now. But and also the way that people are just smart. People just know everything now. It's like there's no there's no gatekeeping anything anymore because this information is just out there. So but going back to the bug, I always just had it, and like I was mentioning a little bit in passing, like I was going to work and then I was leaving it and just going to my favorite bar and being and hanging out there and being like, this place is my church. This place is where I want to be.
Right.
So why does this have to be a place that I only go um, and just be a just be a consuming part of it? I want to be a participant and be somebody on the other side who does this for people. I want to be a safe haven for other people who come in and want to enjoy something. I want to be a creator. I want to be somebody who, um, you know, you know, shares,
Yeah, you want to drive the
my
bus.
passion. Exactly. I want exactly. I want to drive the bus. And that's just something that that I had back then that I continue to 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 feel about being in the hospitality industry over time. And I finally told my parents about it, so that was a big step. They're
How did
like,
that conversation go?
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, surprisingly well. They saw that they saw that that I wanted to transition over and be part of the industry. And then I only told them when I became a manager.
Yes.
You have
It's
success.
like, no, don't worry. Like, I have a title now. It's a real
I have a
job,
title
I promise.
now.
titled
It's a
job.
salaried position. You can be not scared anymore.
The salary man. Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also, when I told them about how I was starting to, bring in things from my heritage, my parents were really excited. They really saw, I mean, they saw it along the way that I wasn't your typical I wasn't your typical Asian A+ student, like I wasn't, didn't accelerate at school in the same way that I didn't get into Stuyvesant, okay, in high
Right.
school. So they knew they already given up on me to do anything with to be a doctor, lawyer, etc. Back then.
Well, and the cool thing is just talking to you, you can see how excited and happy this makes you. And,
Yeah.
I think that that's, a sign that for them, I mean, I don't know. I feel like maybe at the end of the day, hopefully your parents just want you to be happy. And clearly this is something this is a lane that makes you extremely happy to travel in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's yes, they were excited when I started to take it seriously, and also as a leader, I was, they started to recognize that I had, a lot of people working under me who, who also go on and do other things, basically somebody who is a mentor and a leader, that is something that they saw in me, was something that I couldn't get from doing anything else.
Yeah.
Well,
as someone,
I tell this story a lot when I have an identical twin brother, and we both had the same degree in graphic design.
Creepy.
And he stayed with it, and I decided to get into the industry. And I was, having a twin brother, it's like you're always kind of judged against each other. And he's the studious one, and I was the one who just all over the place, And so my parents would always say you got to make good grades in school or you're going to end up working in a kitchen. I'm like, God damn, I'm not ready for a TV show yet. I was I don't know. But now, anytime we get together, it's my brother still works in design and tech. And we get together and there was I talked to my brother and so how's work going? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, cool. Damon, what have you been up to? Where have you been lately? You traveling around the world? You do
the more exciting one.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny.
I know it ended up being the more exciting thing to talk about and at the dinner table, right?
Yeah, exactly. Over Soju. Lots of it.
So you spent most of your time on the coasts, you mentioned earlier, here in New York mostly, and probably, I guess, the rest of the time in LA. What has made you decide to now go to the Gulf of America?
I know.
And live in New Orleans and start a business there? I grew up on the Gulf of Mexico in Florida. I'll never call it that.
It's still Gulf of Mexico to me. It rhymes better in songs.
It's the fucking Gulf of Mexico.
I'm not going to change all those lyrics.
We're not changing it here. Not in this room.
I didn't mean to.
No,
I didn't
yes.
mean to suck politics into it. It's just it bothers me because I literally grew up. My house was on the sand. I grew up on the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
What made you choose New Orleans, other than of course, its storied history with cocktails, and and how do you think that your concept is going to fit in, be received, and what are you going to showcase?
Yeah, so there is the plan was always to open my own thing, as oh, hi, cutie.
Damon's dog just showed up for people who are
not watching on
not
YouTube.
watching this and are wondering what the hell just happened.
That's
I mean,
Jojo.
maybe if Damon's dog would show up, more people would want to watch.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. You don't know how much dog content you're missing out on out there, folks.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah,
No,
sorry.
please, welcome guest. So I was saying, the plan was to always eventually open up my own thing because, as much as Momofuku's been so generous and such a great platform for me, it's just, it's always going to be for the bigger, for the corporation essentially.
Sure.
And I've obviously, and as you guys can see, like, and specifically championing the thing that I do. And I've always wanted, and I'm collecting all these recipes of things that I've been working on. The option was to, and I just, having this exist in say LA or New York, I mean, that was the original goal, like to come back to New York and open something here. But the more that I thought about it, I just thought, like, do I want to be a small,
I get it. Yeah, I see where you're going. You want to be a small fish in a big pond, or the big fish in a small pond?
And then also the stars align.
Consider being the alligator.
Wow.
So I'm about perfect, because I'm gonna be. That's the idea, is to be an alligator here in the bayou,
That's right.
in this area. But so I have a partner who he currently lives here, and he's also in restaurant operations out here. And I was like, and it didn't occur to me at first to do it here, but then I was like, it's New Orleans. I love the bars here. There's so much established history. I mean, the culture of cocktails here is so uniquely here. And it's been relatively untouched and like unchanged for a really long time. Are we ready? Are they ready for something like this? I'm gambling on it. I think that I want to, and that's the thing. It's like, I want some part of the cocktails that I create here to be, to stay traditional and to stay true to where we are. But I want to bring in Korean ingredients. I want to bring in Korean spirits, and I want to see what happens when I collide the two, and see what happens there. And I feel like there's going to be a magic that happens here that probably I would not have thought of, or would probably not happen if I was in LA, with Koreatown being so huge and established, and also in New York. Let's talk how, I mean, I'd be competing with you guys, for fuck's sake. Like, okay, thanks. Like, that's crazy to me. No, I would be happy to, but like, I just thought the opportunity was so interesting that I thought, like, I really want to see what happens when I
Well, I think
these two.
I think there's lots of advantages, cost of living lower, cost of running a business lower. I also think that you're right. I lived there for a long time. I grew up not far from there. And, over the past, say, 10 years, a whole new cuisine emerged, right? Viet Cajun, right? I'm
Yep.
sure you've seen some of the restaurants down there. So there's an interest in unique things and how they can fold into what exists there already. There's interest in, maybe Asian influences. There's always in that city interest in drinking. So I think it's an ideal spot for you to launch something, and we're excited to hear about it. Do you have a location? Do you have a timeline? And is there anything about the place that you can share this early on?
I have minimal things to share right now.
Okay, that's fine.
Their location has been established.
Great.
It's going to be Bywater, which is also like a really lovely neighborhood. It's not like it's a little bit away from French Quarter, so I'm not trying to mess with the quarter.
It's like Red Hook to me, in
Sure.
a way. It's like there's like really cool like divey bars there where like Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin will show up and just start playing harmonica. I actually saw that one night when I was at one of those bars. There's also some.
It was Sonny's, wasn't it? It was definitely. It had to.
No.
Sonny's,
I mean,
right?
it was the equivalent of Sonny's.
Okay.
In the Bywater.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but it was awesome.
Saturn, maybe?
Vans?
Or
I think so. Yeah.
Vans or Saturn Bar? Yeah.
I think it was Saturn. I was there with Aaron Polsky, and there's also some great antique shops there. Where I've
in all of New Orleans, yeah.
Well, in the Bywater specifically, that it's not like super picked over, and they have like lots of really great like antique glassware. I mean, that's all over New Orleans, but like the cool thing is in the Bywater, that one's like specifically not super picked over. I mean, now it probably will be since we're talking about it, but you can find like I found old like Silver Rogers like bar tools from like the 1800s. That's another thing about like New Orleans. It's like it's just so old. It's like New York, you know. It's like you can find all the cool old stuff there, and it's kind of like normal in a slight way, you know. It's like it's kind of like going upstate New York and like finding like old punch bowls, you know. It's like people are like, yeah, it's like take it, like it's taking up space, get rid of it.
Right.
And we take it back to our bars and we're like, check out how cool this is. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm
and I
stoked
think,
on the Bywater. That's great.
yeah, and I love what you said about the sort of Viet Cajun thing. Like, you know, it's not that big of a leap to think about like what Korean flavors would be. I mean, there's actually like a Korean fried chicken place that actually just opened up as well, uptown. And so we're starting to see a little bit of things trickling in here and there. You know, there's like Japanese culture and cuisine has also started to become a little bit more prominent here as well. And like, let's face it, like I'm not trying, you know, I am trying to be, I am trying to be somebody who's bringing in something completely new and just taking a gamble. Like I kind of have faith in what I've done for all these years, 10 years. I mean, you know, even when I started 10 years ago in Korea, there were so many people that had not even had soju. Makgeolli, forget about it. People
Right.
you spell it and they're like, that is the most confusing word I've ever seen. And that, you know, Hana Makgeolli in Brooklyn, we have maku, which is like canned makgeolli. Like these things have not, like these are like a 5 or 7 year has just started even like in places like New York where you would think that all that that the trends basically start from.
Right.
So it's all coming together. Like people are really starting to know everything really quickly all together. Have you guys had makgeolli before by any chance? I'm just
No,
curious if
what
you
is
ever
that?
had any. Makgeolli. Oh, Sadr, you said you had?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm the one nay on this, so I'm learning in real time. Tell me about it.
Well,
So-
Blake Walker, just before the pandemic, Blake Walker, who was my head bartender at that time, and I were working on a project for a Korean restaurant, and we were just getting our toes wet into all of that stuff, and then the pandemic came and swept the job out from under us, and of course the world out from under us. But yeah, right about 2020, I tasted some makgeolli, and we were looking at doing things with it.
Yeah, I mean, and Greg and Damon, like, if you ever find yourself in Brooklyn, like, I would go to Hana Makgeolli. They are doing like, they're doing craft versions of makgeolli, and makgeolli is
Right.
actually older than soju. Makgeolli
Oh
has
yeah,
existed like,
I've had it for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
oh great, yeah, no, it's existed before soju because basically the first way that like and most like you know like when we're talking about like the first time mead was created, it was literally because it was just something was sat out and fermented by accident.
Right.
Like makgeolli was created like with rice farmers like thousands of years ago because they basically held some rice back from their harvest and then they would just ferment it and then just make like a rice beer. And this rice beer is in its most simplest incarnation, just like yeast, rice, and then you know created. So that makgeolli is in essence like the oldest alcoholic beverage in Korea. Anyway, it's not as well, which is ironic because it's not as well known. But that is also starting to see an evolution because of the craftsmanship these days. You know, Korea also doesn't export that much, by the way. Like exporting is also something that they've been fiercely protective of, like of selling their wares outside of the country. And so it took somebody. Actually, Kyungmoon is KMS Spirits. He actually just started, I believe, 5 years ago, importing premium spirits. He's like the premier spirit importer that is finding these cool little craft distilleries and breweries in Korea, and then getting them to, and probably really having to convince them to sell them outside of their like little you know little land or landmass or little area
Sure.
in Korea.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. And you said if I ever find myself in Brooklyn, I'm finding myself in Brooklyn right now, so I will
There you
definitely have
go.
to go and check that out. But I wanna, and maybe this is a good place to end the show. And I wasn't even planning on bringing this up at the beginning, but this is something I really want to ask you about, is that I last weekend was in a town in Virginia where I used to live that I would describe the vibe when I was there as pridefully boring. And I wound up having drinks with the head of economic development and tourism for this city. And she said that they were working on bringing in, a lot of new businesses, farm to table stuff. There's sort of a major sports complex and a Michelin starred chef that they've been courting, that they're trying to get to bring establishments there. And it feels like that is kind of a good, hopefully, a sign of positive change coming for the American South, which I know can be very stuck in its ways and resistive to change. Love the American South. A lot of skeletons in that closet, though. Hoo boy.
Mhm.
So I don't know. What do you? It sounds to me like maybe you're seeing some of those green shoots too, opening a place like this in New Orleans. Like maybe you're at a place where you're seeing that town ready to. Okay, they're ready for something that they haven't seen before. You know?
Yeah.
Can I jump in quickly though? Come on, Greg. It's like saying that New Orleans.
Yeah, well, yes,
is
I
the
know.
South
I
is
know.
like
I
so,
know that.
like,
I
so
know that
far off.
Colonial Williamsburg and New Orleans are different places. There are different vibes in both of those spots. However, I don't know. I think that it. New Orleans is very much its own thing, but it also definitely has one foot in that kind of that part of the country as well.
I mean, I always think that when we see our industry, we always think that everybody knows what we do and the industry is the only industry. I mean, that changed when I was in LA because that industry is a very different industry. But I have to say that Tales of the Cocktail, New Orleans, New Orleans is a pocket of of quite more of a global lens than I think. Any place Damon, you're like, yeah, it's not really the South when you think about it, because of the fact that it's so born and bred by hospitality, by food and drink, and food and drink is just always going to be culturally nebulous and international and in scale, just a composite of so many different cultures that it's only a matter of time that will osmosify here. So
Yeah.
I just want to be, I don't even, it's a gamble, but I honestly think I just want to be the first person, because I'm scared somebody else is going to do this. And time is ticking. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to do it.
Listen, there are people who talk about doing things, and there are people who do things. So get out there and get it done.
Exactly.
That's right.
I think you gotta get
and
to it.
you know what? And then I do something here, and then if it does really well, New York is still the white whale.
Yeah, and then you'll be the next David
waiting for
Chang. We'll just completely obscure Momofuku entirely.
Oh.
Well,
Eclipse him.
if our listeners wanted to follow along on your meteoric rise through the industry world, where can they follow you on? Is there an Instagram you want to plug? Any sort of websites or anything? Where can they follow along with your exploits?
Yeah, I mean, it's so Haera Shin's HAIRYSHINS.
Okay.
It's my name, Haera Shin. So it's been a nickname for since I was a kid. And I will and all the as things unravel and roll out, I'll just make sure that I release all the information there. The book is in the process right now. I just sent the manuscript in the beginning of this month, and so the targeted P day is going to be next year summer.
Okay.
So I'm really excited about that, and hopefully by then we'll see much more progress in Korean spirits and cocktails at large. So I'm just happy to be I'm just happy to be just a mouthpiece for that, one of the mouthpieces for this.
Totally. We'll
I'm
have
really
to have you
excited for
back
the
on the
book.
show,
Yeah.
have an update. And when you release the book, please come back on to promote it. But hopefully we can have you on before that when the bar opens, which sounds like it's moving right along too. So
Yeah, I'm
Congrats
so
on-
excited. I'd be happy to. I'd be thrilled to.
yeah, congrats on so many cool things, by the way.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
we've been doing this show. I've been doing this show for 15 years, basically. And the guys have been on for, I think so there's 7 or 8. And then Greg's been on for about 5. And, it's every week we get to talk to really fascinating people. And speaking of marketing, I've worked in spirits marketing for a long time now, and what's been great about this show for many years is when it got established, PR companies started reaching out to me and to us to pitch guests. So we really get our pick of whoever we want to have on the show, and we get a lot of interesting pitches and like people. But what's really great is that we always have really interesting people on. So you're part of that club now too. So and people who hustle. I love hearing stories. Like to talk to people who just like you learn about it in New York and then you take it somewhere else, like you said. There's and it's. Oh.
Is that out? Is that a hard out?
We're being played off, I guess.
Yeah,
but here, sorry, let's clear that. But so thank you again for being on the show. It's just great to hear someone talk about all the cool things that they're doing, and we're super excited for you and can't wait to have you back to talk about it again.
Yeah, gentlemen, it was truly an honor. Thank you for being ears to hear me just soapbox about this all. But like, you guys are all like, incredible, and I I really thank you. Thank you so much for the platform and for your time. And
absolutely.
I appreciate it so much.
This was fantastic, and thank you for coming on. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to do it for us this week on The Speakeasy. But if you want to see this program, if you want to see what JoJo looks like, JoJo is incredibly cute, as you heard, and you can see his adorable face because we are now on YouTube. We are at youtube.com/@speakeasy.podcast. And if that still isn't enough to slake your insatiable thirst for Damon Southern Eye, you can become a regular on our Patreon. That's going to give you lots of exciting perks like sponsor-free listening, cocktail recipes from all of our guests. Haera sent in a awesome-looking one that I'm excited to try, a free cocktail kit every month from our friends at Shaker and Spoon, and B-roll. We're going to start putting some pre-green room banter on there that our regulars are going to be able to tune in on. So follow us for that. And speaking of our friends at Shaker and Spoon, our Speakeasy Box episode 2 is live from our friends at Shaker and Spoon. We each have a recipe in there. Mine is called Whoops All Berries, which once again commemorates the horrific all-berry accident of July 16th, 1995. As I've mentioned before on the show, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of boxes of cereal were contaminated and were nothing but berries for years afterwards. And cleanup efforts are continuing to this day. And to answer y'all's question, no, I don't care if no one finds this bit funny but me. I'm entertained, and that's what's important.
Stick to the bit.
So,
stick to the bit.
Exactly. Commit. So check it out at shakerandspoon.com, and be sure to tune in next week when our guest is going to be Darnell Smith of Moon. They are I'm not really sure what to call them. I guess a cannabis RTD, which is not a world that I know too much of the science behind. So really excited to hear more about that.
I've already gotten into it, and they're awesome.
Okay, great.
Just gonna say,
because I'm not, I don't know. I wish I liked being stoned more. So I've sort of been like dipping my toe in, but I got to admit, it's nice. Like the flavor, marijuana drinks have come so far in the last 20 years. They no longer taste like someone just put a joint out in your beer. His are really fun, and I'm excited to talk more about them. That is going to be next week. But for now, until next time, cheers, everybody.
Cheers,
everybody.
So you don't shun the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil runs his groove in them rhythm and blues that sound. It's gonna get